All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'm Joe, the Kentucky Atheist. Today, my guest is Chen.
Hey
Uh,
guys.
what I know he's famous for is some of his interactions with Kent Hovind. You had a few debates with him, and you've done some other stuff too. But that's I think most people around the community remember some of those because you
Good.
your approach was unique.
Yeah, so I try to like whether it's Mr. Dr. Ken Hovind or any of the other creationists, I try to approach it a little bit differently with slightly different arguments. And if I like the creationists or if I don't think they're too bad, like T Rock, he seems to be he's wrong, but he seems to be quite a polite guy. I treat them professionally. But someone like, Rock Hard Ken Hovind, the wife beater, a convicted felon, I have no respect for the guy. And it probably shows in the debate. Like, I have no respect for him when I debate him.
What was it you said to Kent last time about carrying a plant with him?
The thing about Kent, like I'm sure your audience have heard a lot of debates with Kent, right? He has the same script. He's been told why he's wrong many times, but yet he'll repeat the same shit over and over again. Like he just doesn't learn. And I reckon he does know it. He just doesn't want to admit to it, right? So,
Right.
so every time he talks, he just talks a lot of crap. And I just basically think, like, we've got this saying in Australia, oxygen thief. And that's what I think of Kent. Like every time he's talking, he's stealing oxygen. So I basically say to him, carry a plane around so that it can replace the fucking oxygen that you've wasted, basically. So that was my little joke with it. It's a thing that we kind of say in Australia, oxygen.
Yeah. No, and you're exactly right. And I think that's how most people feel about Kent now. There's been, for the longest time, it was like if you were a member of the atheist community or you had an atheist channel, there was like the obligatory Kent Hovind debate, right? You had to, yeah, and making it was getting having him whack an atheist, right? Like,
yeah, I've been hoping he would do a whack an atheist, maybe he hasn't done one yet. So I don't know, but
yeah.
I don't really want to debate Kent. The second time I debated him, I did that because if you guys kind of follow the Kent Hovind debates, he had a debate with a couple of like a girl named Fox Official, or I can't remember her name, Fox Official, and there's another one called Daria, and they're obviously transgender, and he was very transphobic in his comments. Like I think this really floored me. He got Daria's boyfriend to come on screen and basically ask the boyfriend whether Daria had a penis. So he was very transphobic and very rude. And after that, I basically called up Donnie and I said, "Get me on a debate with Kent." And I had this thing that I wanted to do where I would kind of say, and guys, unfortunately you can't see it because Donnie actually cut it off. So he's put the debate up, but he's cut off this particular line that I kind of said. So I basically kind of just did a whole thing around, "Hey Kent, I don't want to misgender you. Do you identify as a man or a woman?" And then Donnie shut me down at the beginning. So I said that in my introduction. Donnie shut me down. And at the very end, I basically said, "No, I've got to get this one out." It was the entire point of me doing this debate. Like, I did not care about the content. I just wanted to kind of get this line out. And I basically said to Ken, I said, because Ken, given that a real man doesn't beat his wife, I just assumed that you're a woman. You identified as a woman. So that was my entire line that got cut out of the debate, the second debate. But yeah, I just got really incensed with Kent's transphobia.
No, as you should. It's and especially like it would be bad enough if Kent was just your regular transphobic bigot Christian, but he's a grifter on top of it, right? Like he's the used car salesman of creationist apologists. And well, actually, that's Donnie, I guess, but
that's true.
But so like you've debated T Rock, I debated him as well.
Oh, good. Okay, how did you find him?
T Rock was really nice. He was
he's wrong, but he's a polite guy, right?
Yeah, he wasn't a bad guy or anything. He was real. He didn't overtalk me. He didn't make any ad hominem attacks or anything like that. I've done a couple debates. I debated him and I debated Kyle Adams about a worldwide flood.
No, I
do you
don't
know Kyle Adams?
No, I don't know.
Kyle Adams is known for crying on MDD when he debated Arn Ra.
You see that moment? You see the moment? Yeah. I remember him now. Yes. No,
I
so I was gonna.
debated him on one of your fellow countrymen's channel there, Mark Reed.
Did he?
Yeah,
Mark would have smashed him. Mark's a really intelligent guy.
Mark hosted that debate between me and Kyle, and again, like Kyle was very, you know, he let me speak. He did, you know, even though he gave false sources, which creationists always do. It's always a quote mine or it doesn't
Exactly, they
exist
do.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But although he did that, and I can say he was dishonest in that aspect, he was, you know, he was genuine and a nice guy. And those are things like, again, like Kent not only has been reading the same script for 25 years, but he also is kind of a dick, right? I mean, like he says awful shitty things about people and then hollers ad hominem if you say anything back to him.
So on that recent debate I had with him, he must have gone. So we both Ken and I, we dialed in about 15 minutes before the show went live, and the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, Ian, I've looked at the last couple of debates we've done, and I just want to tell you, if you say any more ad hominem, this debate will be over." And I pretty much just agreed with whatever he said, because, you know, Kent is a very prideful man. Once you get him in front of a live audience, there is no chance he's going to rage quit, right? So he's got too much pride. He's got his audience there. So I said, whatever. And then I basically waited. If you listen to the debate, it was him that made the first move. So I was actually all right until he basically called me an idiot. And I thought, okay, all gloves are off. You know, if you want to insult an Aussie, that's fine. Aussies give it to you pretty good. So
yeah. No, I think you know, I think you did an excellent job, right up there with, you know, anybody else that's done good debates against Kent. I know you probably talked to AJ a little bit. He debates Kent a lot, and me and AJ are friends. He's helped me out quite a bit.
Yeah,
so I've kind of been on the outskirts of debating Kent. Donnie and Sam have tried to get me to come debate Kent, and I don't do it. I just take shots at him. I'm not really, to me, like, Kent deserves to be mocked, not taken seriously.
So I first debated Kent in 2022, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that my style of mocking Kent, it was kind of really the first time it was done explicitly. Excuse me. It was the first time it's been done explicitly, and I'm kind of pleased. And I'm not saying that it was me, but I'm kind of pleased to see that that more and more people are treating Kent and treating the debate with Kent exactly as it's basically deserved. So I saw Wade, the Wizard's recent debate with him as well. And if you look at his first one with Kent, he was very polite. But you saw the last one with him, he kind of at least put the gloves off and kind of gave it to Kent. I believe that's the only valid reason to debate Kent, is to mock him, is to insult him, and just, you know, don't even bother trying to convert him. He's not going to do it. Just have fun with him, and that's it. That's the only valid reason now, I think, to debate Kent.
Yeah, if you can make a fun bingo game out of it, or you can mock him and make some comedy out of it, or something like I think there's something there. But like I agree with you. A lot of these creationists, I mean, they haven't brought anything new in 1,000 years now, and it's like there's, you know, Aaron Raw is great at debating creationists. There's AJ does an excellent job with Kent. Mark Reed has done some excellent things against creationists. There's a lot of people that have done it really, really well. And so to me, I'm kind of like past this, like, I'm not going to sit down and pretend like science and reasoning is on a level playing field with your magical thinking and bullshit. Like, you're denying the facts of reality. Like, we know evolution is a fact. The theory of evolution is what drives that, but evolution itself is a fact, right? I mean, there's not really, and that's been shown to these people so many times that it seems like, and to each their own. I don't fault anybody else for what they do. You know, do what you want to do. I kind of, when I first started, I wanted to debate people, and I made responses to Kent Hovind and Kenneth Copeland and who's the banana guy, and
the New Zealand guy, Ray Comfort, from New Zealand. Yeah.
You know, I made responses and made funny videos about that stuff. It was more me mocking them than anything. But
wonderful.
For me, I realized at some point that there's this whole section of the atheist community that's been around for a while. And
Yeah.
like we've seen the debates, we've seen Matt Dillahunty yell at people, we've seen Aaron Ra and his charisma make people look stupid. We've seen the Mark Reeds and the
Yeah.
and those guys are good. And I still watch the occasional debate too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, I feel like there's a whole section of the atheist community that's kind of past that shit and
Yeah.
just wants to hang out and be a community, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's how we normalize the atheist community, really,
Yeah.
is by
Yeah.
being a normal community. Like, not
Yeah.
every conversation has to be an argument with a Christian.
Yeah. I agree.
So
I
that's
agree.
kind of like, I invite atheists on my channel. I don't ever invite theists. If they ask to speak to me, I will. But like, I don't. It's just not my priority. Like,
Mate, it
I
sounds
don't
like you're in
care
the
to
wrong country, Joe. It sounds like you're in the wrong country. We
Yeah.
had a census done in Australia in 2022, and we are now officially 40% atheist. So we not as high as like some countries in Europe, 60, 70%, but it's getting up there. 40% atheist. It's I think it's pretty good. But I was going to say, just to your point around channels like Mark Reed and Aaron Ra and even the Gutsy Gibbons and the Dr. Dans of the world are also pretty popular channels as well. They're scientists. So Dr. Dan's got a PhD in virology or something. It's like at least something related to biology. I'm pretty sure it's virology. I believe Gutsy Gibbon Erica has recently got a PhD. So she's close to it of some sort. So
I think she's still finishing up.
Yeah. But
I think
much more advanced than myself is what I'm saying. So what I'm getting at is you've got some really strong science-minded people that have channels out there that are educating people on the science, and they're educating people on the science that they themselves know. All right. I know there's like I think it's Barker, who's a geologist. So he does some stuff around geology, and he's like debunked the Mount St. Helens and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So there are people that know the science. So I have a master's in marketing. I'm so far away from being anything science as well. So I don't actually try to pretend that I know the science. I leave that to the Mark Reeds. He's like an autodidact. Like, he knows everything, right? I leave that to the Mark Reeds, yourselves, the people who can communicate science better than myself to teach the science. So I kind of figured, where's my little niche in the creationism? By the way, in Australia, most people, like all my mates, don't even know young earth creation is a thing. So when I tell them what I do, they just laugh at me and they go, "What the hell are you doing? What is this?" So they don't understand it. But I've kind of got involved in it, but mainly through you guys in America. Like, it seems to be quite a big thing in America, right? But I leave all the science to basically the science guys, and I found my little niche in terms of, well, can I find a little argument? Like with Ken Hovind, it's fairly easy. Can I find an argument that's a little bit different? And just kind of focus on that. So my last debate with Ken, what I tried to do, and I still think it's a strong argument, I hope people that are listening, or people that yourself, maybe Joe, if you want to consider doing more debates, like maybe pick up on these, on what I try to do with Ken. But I try to flip it around with him and basically argue, like, how Ken always says, you believe you came from a rock. So I try to formulate an argument that says, well, no, if you read a literal reading of the Bible, it actually says you believe you came from a rock. I think the Bible passage I quoted was, God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind. I got Ken to admit that bring forth meant give birth. What does let the earth bring forth mean? It means let the rocks give birth to the living creature. So I try to point him in these little, like, kind of niche things. They're not very scientific, but it just kind of show how stupid his worldview is. So that's what I try to do.
I really actually liked that part of it, because one of the things I say whenever they're like, well, you believe that the universe poofed into existence from nothing.
It's what they believe.
I'm like, that's what you believe. You believe a God made it from nothing. I don't think that at all.
And in that debate with Ken, I was trying to say, at least what we're trying to do is understand the process. We might not understand abiogenesis, but we've got a view and we're trying to test it. Whereas you've just given up. Your view is God did it and it's magic and that's good enough for me. So it's which it's not. Sorry, mate.
I think that the big difference is that science is always looking to discover the next new thing. Like we're looking to refine our theories and our understanding of the mechanisms that drive the natural world. And then you have religion, which has a book that already has all the answers.
Yeah.
So there's no search for discovery. There's no curiosity about how the world works.
I think those two words resonate strongly with me. So searching and discovery. So you're absolutely right. When you speak to someone like Kent or other creationists, they just accept what's in the book. The book says this, it must be right. They don't even question it.
Right.
Whereas you speak to any side, whether atheists or evolutionists or theistic evolutionists, they try to understand the process. It's about searching. It's about the discovery. It's exactly what you said, Joe. So creation is just basically, to your point, the book says it. It's right. That's it. That's all I need to know.
And just to be clear, I'm not. My degree's in computer science. I'm not a biologist or anything. And
welcome to the club, Joe. Welcome to the club.
The thing that got me into it though was like I live in Eastern Kentucky, and Kentucky itself is 47% young Earth creationists. Nationally, nationally it's 38%, according to Pew. The last research I looked at from Pew, anyway. My state and the area I live in, it's no accident that Ken Ham plopped the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum down where he did, because there's this huge creationist population here in Kentucky. A lot of rural areas that kind of allows for that sort of nonsense,
Yeah.
And so I was raised young Earth creationist and was a young Earth creationist up into my 20s until I went to when I went to college. I went to Ohio University.
And was it college that knocked you out of it? Like, did you take like biology or something? Like, how? I'm really keen to know how you got out of that, because obviously, from you were born to you were 20, those were your formative years, and if that's what you believe, it'd be difficult to kind of knock you out of that belief, right? How did you manage to do it, Joe?
So it was actually a documentary that I watched that was discussing the similarities between human and chimp and bonobo DNA, and showed that they were like 98% the same, and explained why that is, and the history of how how the chromosomes fused and all that stuff. Like it really broke it down and explained it, and that kind of I had always questioned it anyways, like I always had a lot of questions that weren't answered, but that never made me doubt there was a God. Whenever I watched that, it made me realize that these two things can't both be true. And that sent me on a path to where I went looking, trying to confirm my faith. And the more I looked for facts and information to confirm my faith, the more I found that contradicted it. And I ended up, my electives in college, I ended up taking physics and psychology. Psychology ended up being my minor. And so I really, the more that I learned, the more education and stuff I got, because my high school taught intelligent design. But the more that I learned in college, and I had access to scientific journals and stuff through the library for free, and so I had all the information there, and when it was made available, that the evidence is overwhelming. Evolution is. I always have to point this out. Evolution is a fact. If you say that evolution does not occur, you're either lying or ignorant. Evolution is absolutely a fact. Now, the theory of evolution, though, is, and a lot of creationists don't like the word theory. I understand.
Because none of them understand science. That's a problem. If you don't understand science, you do not understand the scientific definition of the word.
Right. Yeah, they're not. See, and that's, again, it's an issue of they think they have a book that has all the answers. So why would they even give it any thought? And I've always, if you go into it with an open mind and you're willing to be honest, you cannot walk away denying that evolution occurs.
Can I ask, though, just because obviously with your name, the Kentucky Atheist, and by the way, I am an atheist. My beef is really more around young Earth creationists, because I see that they and FLIRs, They are the one that deny science. But if you're religious and you accept the science, I don't care personally. Even though I myself am an atheist, I don't really care, right? It's only the people that deny science. So you've obviously been born. You mentioned you were born, you were raised a young Earth creationist, but you've gone straight down to being an atheist. Like, what made you not become a theistic evolutionist? Because a lot of them do accept the science, but you've gone that one step further, which is fine. I'm just like, what made you go down that way?
So after all the information about science, which made me realize that the young Earth creationist position could not be true. I read a book called A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem by Dyer is the author. And in that book, it talks about different creationist stories from various religions and things. Mm-hmm. And that, again, I had the thought, these can't all be true, mm-hmm. but they can be false. And if this one's false, why is it false and this one isn't? And computer science, even though it's not a biological field, obviously, mm-hmm. it's very focused on logic, right? Yeah. Computer, you make flow charts and Venn diagrams to track logic of a computer program, and it just gave me a new way of thinking about things, and mm-hmm. I was able to, I started studying physics, and I had 4 years of calculus in college, mm-hmm. So I could do some of the math, right? I had 4 years of calculus, and I had differential equations, so I could understand. At least I could figure out the math. I'll put it that way. I didn't understand it on the face of it, but I was able to work my way through some online physics courses. No college credit, just did it because I wanted to. Yeah. And got big into cosmology and read Neil deGrasse Tyson's books and a lot of Carl Sagan stuff and things like that. Yeah. And it just it made me realize that the universe and the world that we live in is so much more amazing than just saying a God did it, right? And at the moment that I realized I didn't believe those things were true anymore, mm-hmm. I had this like epiphany moment where the world opened up for me. And I was a drug addict for a number of years. I was addicted to heroin. And I overdosed multiple times. Oh no! I've been through detoxes and rehabs and prison and jail, and I've done all those things, right? And at the moment that I seen the world for what it really is, like what we really have around us, and that these mechanisms that are so amazing driving everything. Mm-hmm. It was hard for me to see the absurdity of Christianity and then believe any of it was true. Yeah. And I had the tools to be able to think about those things critically, right? So whenever you look at, and this goes for multiple religions, I've looked into others too, but Christianity specifically, because that's what affects me most, and young Earth creationist is what I grew up in. So once I had the tools to apply a bit of critical thinking to it, I realized that under the least little bit of scrutiny, religion falls apart completely. And can I prove that a God doesn't exist? No. But it's the same as you waking up today and telling me there's a pink unicorn. Like, I have no reason to believe it's true. There's no reason to even make that assertion. So
mate, Joe, I think you are quite
true, but the likelihood of it is close to zero, right?
Yeah, I think we're quite similar. Like, just that God thing is, yes, you can't prove that a God does not exist. But for me to believe, for me personally, and it sounds like for you as well, for you and I to believe that a God exists, you need to give me proof that it does exist. So it's not like, it's like I'm starting everything with a clean slate. If you're saying something's on that plate, prove it first before, like, don't make me pretend.
Show me something. I go a step further, because I say not only can you not provide any sufficient evidence that a God exists, but you can't give me any good reason to even pose that assertion. Like, there's no reason to ever even assert that. There's no place to put a God where it's necessary that you insert a God to explain anything. So not only can you not provide me with any evidence, you can't give me any reason at all. And the best that I ever get whenever I ask for those reasons, because I approach this a little differently in that sense, right? I don't
Yeah.
care about proof. Just give me a reason.
Yeah.
And if your reason is, well, you'll go to hell, like that, okay, you're going to threaten me with punishment to make me believe.
Yeah.
That's not a loving God. That's
Every reason, Joe, is personal, right? So
sure.
the kind of responses I get is, you get the one hand, you're going to go to hell. So it's that fear-based reason. But you also get the ones where I tend to have a bit of sympathy for. I don't believe it myself, but I do tend to have a bit of sympathy for the ones that go, like it's a sad thing. It's like, my father died, my mother died, and I have to make sense of the world. So my way of trying to cope and make sense of that is to believe that they went to a better place and God is looking after them. So everything is personal because there is no hard proof that there is a God, and all the evidence is it's on themselves. So it's whether, well, you're going to go to hell, that's like still on themselves, or, they're in a better place and God is looking after them, which is also onto themselves. So you're right. There's no proof, but there's this range of personal, and a lot of them is emotional. So I'm kind of a bit more sympathetic on emotional stuff, but only because I know that they're sad. It's coming from a sad place.
Indoctrination is a thing, right? I mean, like it's and that's really what drives it. Cultural indoctrination.
I have to ask, mate. You gave, like, I'm still stuck on that statistic that you gave me, 47%. I didn't actually think it was that high. I thought it was maybe a third, but maybe, and I think you did say Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
But that's freaking huge, mate.
Nationwide, it's 38.
Why do you think that's the case? Like, why is it so high? Like, maybe why is it so high in Kentucky?
Well,
generally, why is it so high in America? Like, I reckon it's even less than 1% in Australia. Like, it doesn't. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Most people would think you're stupid if you think so. But anyway, sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you're good. I don't want to interrupt you. I'm here to have you talk.
That's cool.
Look at the trees. I have not even heard a logical definition of what a God even is. And the problem with that points directly to why I have such an issue, because I think every single theist, every individual theist, defines a God into existence the way that they see it, and there is no way to describe a God without contradictions, without logical fallacies, and every argument that they make contains those things for the most part, if it's an actual argument. But so yeah, I think in the United States, so Christian nationalism is a big thing, and homeschooling is a big thing, and as one of the things that we see a correlation is lower education areas have more religious people, and the United States is not great on education. I mean, they're just not. And we do have some very educated people here, but we have a whole lot of dumbasses too, and a whole lot of crazies. And you have the United States. While I do a political show too, or I used to. I still do, but not as often since the election passed. But I'm very patriotic about the United States. I love the United States. I'm happy to be American. My family fought in wars and was POWs. My grandfather was at Pearl Harbor on the Yorktown during that. I mean, so my family has a historical significance in that sort of area, right? So I'm proud to be American, but and I'm even proud to be from Kentucky.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it follows that I have to accept those crazy things. But I think we have the United States is so overly obsessed with, especially on the right, obsessed with freedom to do whatever they want and believe whatever they want. And for so long, we let that go unchecked. Like, okay, fine, they believe this, like it's their religion. Let them believe it. We made Scientology a recognized religion, for fuck's sake. And so I think that we have that problem, and that combined with the education and American exceptionalism, Americans want to think there's a God, and God is looking out for America. America is God's country, right?
Yeah.
There's that kind of idealism in a lot of people too, and I think it's a big combination of those things. We
Well, I think
allow people to,
the homeschooling, particularly, if I can maybe dig into that one. I mean, you mentioned education, right?
yeah,
And I think we chatted about this a little bit earlier, but homeschooling is not a thing in Australia. It's not even allowed. The only times you're allowed to be homeschooled is if you're unable to get to school, whether you're disabled in some way. And even then, our government would help fund actual
yeah,
proper teachers to come and teach you. So it's not reliant on your mum and dad trying to teach you science when they've never done it before. It's actual proper teachers coming in to kind of teach you those subjects. So I was very surprised. Like, I'm quite active in a creation versus evolution Facebook group. And every time a creationist will respond to any of my comments, my very first question to them is, are you homeschooled? And I reckon 95% would come back and say they are. So it's look, I don't know how statistically relevant that sample is, but it just sounds to me like homeschooling is a big problem,
well,
a big cause of it.
it's one of these things that like there can be a benefit to homeschooling, and there can be having the freedom to do it is one thing, but it's so unregulated, and we have a lot of these creationists, Ken Ham's AIG folks and stuff, are constantly lobbying in Congress to not put any restrictions on homeschool, to allow them to teach whatever. So as long as they're teaching the basic, math, science, enough to pass a GED, they can add in all this other stuff. And this is the answer you give for the GED. We're going to practice that test. But really, the world is 6,000 years old.
Yeah,
And
this is the
it,
real
it
answer.
allows for those religious fundamentalists to impart that on the next generation. And AIG and Ken Ham are very much focused on doing that. He packs the auditorium at the Ark Encounter full of kids and makes them repeat after him that evolution isn't true, that man walked the earth with dinosaurs, the earth is 6,000 years old. He says these things and then has them repeat after him. It's straight up brainwashing, indoctrination.
Indoctrination, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's we have freedom of religion in the United States, but it's just been recently that we've started to embrace freedom from religion also. Because I was raised in schools where they made you pray every morning, and we even sung religious songs at school and stuff. Deviant Outcast, $100. What is that? Swedish crowns. Teaching quasi-science like creationism instead of reality, i.e., science, ought to be tantamount to child abuse, because it is. And yes, homeschooling, it is insanity and ripe for child abusers to thrive on. Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? And thank you so much, Deviant.
Yeah, thank you, Deviant. You obviously have a lot of sex to give.
Yeah, thank you for all your sex. By homeschooling appeals to those that want to do that kind of harm, right? And, among other things. And by unregulating it and not putting any kind of regulation on what they're teaching and stuff, and not even being allowed to really ask, as long as they're
I just wonder what these Christian nationals would think, where if there are books that kind of go out teaching or homeschooling kids on Islam, for example. Like, if you want to leave it unregulated, do they not think, what about the other religions? Like, there are other things you can teach that they won't be happy with. What about the flows? What about teaching them flat earth? You know what I mean? So I just wonder how they explain that once you open the door, you're going to open it for everybody, just to make it fair. You're not just opening it for yourself.
And I think that's the case, right? Like, that's why flat earth is a thing in America more than other places. And like whenever you, and the difference between flat earth and creationism is, some flat earthers use God as the reasoning for the flat earth. But the creationism, nobody wants to touch it because it's a taboo subject. In America, we're raised and taught you don't talk about politics and religion. You don't. If somebody believes something, you don't confront that. You don't argue with them about it.
Really?
And yeah, that's
in YouTube,
kind of like,
that's all I hear. I hear about, well, maybe it's the sphere of YouTube that I'm in, but there's a lot of talk about religion and a lot of talk about politics these days.
well, there is now the new atheism movement.
Yeah.
I mean, there were atheists before and doing a lot of things. There's a lot of OGs there, but the new atheism movement kind of popularized it and put it in the mainstream in America. So people started watching Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins, and Bill Maher came out with Religulous, which wasn't great, but it became a popular thing because of some of those guys, and they've helped to push it, and other people have been inspired by that. I find a lot of inspiration from Hitchens and Aaron Ra and even Matt Dillahunty, which isn't really my style, but those people who just have utterly destroyed the Christian arguments and stuff, especially the creationist ones. Aaron Ra, I look up to immensely. Even AJ, I don't know if he's still in the chat or not, but I've told AJ I watched your channel, and it's one of the things that made me want to start a channel, because I've seen you do it, and that it's okay to go and confront people when they're spreading bad ideas and lies about science and the world around us. And
the good news is, like, it's from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but whilst you are throwing stats to me that are scary, around 47% of Kentucky people in Kentucky believe in young Earth creationists, some of the overall stats that I've seen in the United States is that young Earth creationists has been declining. So it's not like it's growing. It has been declining. Now, it's obviously a high base, and it's still, I think, unacceptable, especially if I compare it to like my country or even Europe. But the good news is it seems to be like coming. So channels like yourself, and we've got like pretty much a who's who in the chat that I can see. Mark Reed, Ember, and AJ you mentioned. So like the people like you guys are doing your work to kind of take it down. So that seems to be working. I mean, I hope it would have gone quicker, but at least it's heading in the right direction.
No, and I think you're right. I think the information age and social media becoming more widespread and available, I think has allowed
both ways as well. So you mentioned FLIRS, and I suspect a lot of the reason why you guys have a flat Earth problem is because people are going onto YouTube and listening to all the crap that they're saying. So I think that social media kind of cuts both ways as well. But overall trend, it looks like
a double-edged sword. You have to learn to be skeptical, right? I mean, like skepticism is an amazing tool. Can anything in excess can be problematic, right? But
except Kentucky Fried Chicken, Joe. Come on. You can never have too much Kentucky Fried Chicken, right?
Right. Skepticism is a great tool for assessing the claims that people make, especially these extraordinary claims, right? And we learn from things like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
You really do love your Hitchens, don't you?
Yeah. Whenever you go and you apply those things and use the epistemology that is my brand of skepticism, I guess. I don't want to say it's the epistemology of skepticism, because you could also be like you could do like street epistemology, I guess. Like there's other ways, but when you use those tools that are available to apply skepticism to a claim, you also have other sources to go watch. Like, sure, I wouldn't say anyone should go and just listen to Aaron Ra and believe everything he says. But the wonderful thing about science is that you can confirm and see the peer review process, and that these things are corroborated and repeated, and you can then be more sure of that claim or that source. And
if you compare it, so you mentioned Aaron Ra, but if I look at just take a sampling of any evolutionist or atheist kind of channels when they talk about science, and you compare that with a sampling of any creationist kind of channels, the distinctive difference that I see is if you look at RR's presentation, if you look at Dr. Dan, you'll see sources. Like you'll actually see listings of when they make a claim, where they're getting the claim from. And if you click on a source, it usually always goes to a proper peer-reviewed scientific paper. Whereas you go to the creationist one, and you'll see Ken, especially Ken Hovind, he'll put that source around what is it? Two mammals, each part of the mammoth being dated to two different whatever. And he sometimes he won't even have the source, but when he actually has the source and you can go check it out. Obviously, you couldn't do that in the days before the internet, was you actually found out it was two different members. So they either put in something that's erroneous, something that they've obviously misquoted, whether it's accidentally or purposely, or they just neglect to put the source. It's like there's there is like stuff that atheist channels do or evolutionist channels do that creationist channels do not do that gives you a higher level of trust from what they're saying versus what the creationists kind of say. So that's been
right. The mechanism is everything, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I tell people, because I don't pretend to be some great debate bro or like, I don't pretend that I'm any smarter than anyone else. There's areas where I feel like I have a strong understanding of things, and there's areas that I don't. And but we have a mechanism for checking those things, whereas creationists have one single book. And what I tell people about because from my experience of talking to creationists and responding to the claims of creationists, is that whenever they cite a source for their argument, go check it immediately. Because my experience is 100% of the time too. This has never failed me. When I go check the source of creationists, it's either a quote mine or a lie or a misrepresentation.
If they quote a paper, they've put in the first couple of sentences in the paper, but they didn't summarize the actual conclusion of it.
Donnie's real bad about that.
You are right. You are right. And if I could just throw in something there, Joe, you kind of mentioned something. We didn't kind of go into it, but I believe really deeply that there is a place for channels like yourself, because you've got the people, you've got the scientific people writing the papers, and unless you are really putting a lot of attention, I find those papers very difficult to understand. They're written for people that have that knowledge. So they're their peers. Right. They're written for their peers, and they're written for their peers to review what they do, right? But people like myself with no education in science, I find them very difficult to read. So I rely on like for example, someone like you, Joe, probably a similar education background as myself, ergo very little science. Though you said you've done some physics, so you already know more science formally than myself. So I rely on people like you to help distill all that to something that I can understand, because that's where I get my knowledge from, right? So I see a lot of value with channels like yourself. Mark Reed does that really well. I'm just shouting out Mark Reed in the channel.
Mark Reed and Amber do an excellent job of breaking down the argument.
Exactly. They take what I think is complex subjects, and they basically explain it to a layperson such as myself, so I can understand it, right? So I think
the whole debate dissection angle that Mark does is just.
Did you know, Joe, and I know Mark Reed isn't here, this is slow of me, and I know Mark being Aussie would be very disappointed in this, but it only recently clicked to me when Mark does his whole proofread, or, like he's actually making a play on his name.
Can
you believe
he has several shows that are like that?
I know, but I only recently understood that. It was actually when Mark did his debate dissection and Ember made a comment, and I went, oh, so that's what Reed is.
I have to say, the beauty of the atheist community, though, is that you have all these perspectives, right?
Yeah.
You have Gus Gibbon, you have Doc Dino and Mark Reed and Ember and Aaron Raw and Matt Dillahunty. So you have people from all these different perspectives and backgrounds that you can go to check yourself, right? Like you have sources to, if somebody's making a claim about evolution in creationist claim or something, I know that I remember Aaron Raw has a series of videos about this, or so and so's talked about this, or so and so debated Kent, like AJ debated Kent about this and has pointed out monophyly to him a number of times. And like we have all those perspectives, and that's really, really the beauty of it. And we have a lot of excellent people who care about others and want that. They want people to form that community and use those sources to quit believing bad ideas and accept science and facts and understand the beauty of how the world around us works. Mark Reed, we talked about, is one of the nicest, most genuine people I've met in the atheist community. So not only
he's all right, Mark's all right.
Yeah. Not only does he have this unique ability to he's wonderful at debates and this unique ability to break things down in a way that people can understand, but he's also that person, right? Like he's also the person that cares about that. And Amber does a lot with Mark Reed, the same thing. These are so the atheist community has, there's so much more there to offer than what you have from the theistic view, no matter what the religion is, but especially creationism, because all they have is one book, which they've tried to twist and turn and quote mine science and lie about things and misrepresent things in order to convince people of something that isn't evidently true, and in most cases is evidently not true. So,
And to be honest, mate, on my third debate with Rock Hard Ken, I tried to put it back onto him because it was an argument that I didn't see a lot of, like a lot of atheists or evolutionists would kind of argue the science side of it and absolutely right thing, show where it's wrong. But I was trying to think, well, what if we kind of put it back on him? So one of my second arguments that he didn't want to touch, like when I brought it up, he did not touch it at all and he kind of ran, was I said, actually, you're telling me that Genesis should be read literally. You're telling me that the King James version of the Bible is the perfect word of God in English. So if I were to read a couple of passages from Genesis, literally, like you tell me to read, I can prove to you that the Bible proves evolution. And that was my point. That was basically but he didn't want to discuss it. But it's when you kind of put it back into them and kind of say, hey, you're telling me the Bible's your evidence. So let's look at that evidence. So a lot of channels would then focus on the result of what you're saying that is your evidence and how it contradicts science and argues the contradiction. What I was trying to do was basically query the evidence. So you're saying the Bible's right. Let's really hone into the Bible. So I hope people kind of maybe you take some of that argument and maybe just push it out there a bit more.
I think even even if you want to accept that a God exists and that the Bible is true, I think the mainstream creationist arguments still fail. I would agree. I agree with you completely on that. I think that I think both the creationist community and the atheist community are in this transformation period where they're diving deeper into their fundamentalism, which eventually leads to fanaticism, and the atheist community is embracing itself and diving deeper into having those conversations and having a supportive community that takes care of its people. And I think that like everybody loves the provocativeness of a debate, right? Modern day debates got big because they were provocative and because they made people think there was going to be a dumpster fire. Non Sequitur show did the same thing. Like it was, and they even advertised it that way. There's going to be a dumpster fire, like that kind of stuff is, for people coming into the atheist community, it has its value, right? And it is entertaining. I'm not going to say it's not. People watch it, but there's so much more there. And I think that after a period of time, people realize, like, okay, I know this argument, and that kind of with me, like starting a channel, like it's because I feel like I've heard these arguments and yelled at my TV, and I feel like I can make those arguments myself because I've heard them over and over and over. But then I realized once I started interacting with the community and live streaming and stuff, that there's so much more to it than that even. And so I think the atheist community is growing in a really productive, great way.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the creationist community is becoming more fanatical. I mean, that's
Yeah,
especially in America with Christian nationalism and stuff.
yeah,
Politics has interwoven itself into religion, which is why I did a political show, because
yeah,
in America we can't really avoid it because the two things are they're
yeah,
trying to make a theocracy. It's
yeah.
there's Donnie now coming to see you. Hey Donnie, good to see you.
Hey, Donnie, good to see you. It's actually the one thing as an Australian kind of looking in that I worry about your country is that you have a lot of this religion and politics being so intertwined. Honestly, we don't have that here at all. There might be the occasional people. I'm sure there are people here that believe in young creationists in Australia, but it's definitely not intertwined with our politics at all. I'm pretty sure with my mates in Europe, it's the same thing as well. It just seems to me that you've got a big country that is it's respected around the world. It massively influences what happens around the world. And I see this worrying trend around the religion side of it kind of meshing in with the political side of it, and that can be dangerous. So I do kind of worry about it on your behalf, I guess, for your country. But you know,
Well, there's different aspects of it. Just like I try to at least be open minded that while the atheist community has all these different perspectives and experts in different areas and all that stuff, that the creationist community has different perspectives also. There's the ones that want to there's the biblical literalists, of course, and there's some of the more fanatical people, and then there's ones that at least are attempting to use like science and stuff to they're trying to work through it. And even though I think like a conversation about evolution versus creationism is a waste of time, essentially. I think that you're putting uh, reality and factual information on the playing field with magical thinking. Um, I don't really think that there's like, but you get these different interpretations, right? So there's creationists that accept variation through species, and then but of course they won't accept speciation, and
mhm.
then there's ones that won't accept any of that everything was created the way it is, and that's that. And I just feel like that argument though is it's kind of stale. There's nothing new being brought to it, and it's just like the example that we talked about with you debating Kent Hovind. It's I mean, you people who debate Kent now don't prepare for an evolution debate. They prepare for Kent's script. They know
Yep,
what he's going to say. We have
yep.
people in our own community that can do a Kent Hovind impression to a T and say the exact same thing
I
that
have
he
heard
said.
some of them as well. Apparently, there's a Ken Hovind bingo card that's kind of going around where
Yeah,
there's like whatever he says, you kind of tick off the bingo thing. I think that's hilarious. Like I've never seen it myself, but it just sounds fun.
yeah. And I think that there's like, like Donnie has. I've responded to some of Donnie's stuff, and I've interacted with Donnie and Sam. I've talked to Sam, and I debated T Rock. I've talked to those guys over there, and like I said, they were all nice, and it's not a personal thing against them. I think they're decent guys for the most part. I think that I think they're wrong about a lot, of course, but the it's but as far as like then having the that conversation where these things, it's just not for me is all it is. Like I think that other people do it well, and that if I was to get like here we got AJ. Hold on, I'll hit both of these at once. 2025 classrooms, Indiana, Louisiana have 10 commandments by law. AJ Atheist Junior has been a member for 1 month. Thank you so much, AJ.
What does
I
that
think
mean?
people like
Sorry, what is that?
AJ.
What is that? What does that mean? So I'm not following. What does that mean? Ten Commandments by law.
Oh, there's been the in Indiana and Louisiana have passed laws that the 10 Commandments have to be in every classroom now in the
Like
United States.
like a poster? You mean stick a poster on there?
Yes, that they have to be.
How they
They
pass
have,
that? I thought you guys were supposed to be like no
yeah.
church and state kind of thing.
Well, we're supposed to be, but the
Actually, this is interesting because I'm like I said, I try to figure out topics that I could if I were ever going to debate Ken again, and the chance of that is kind of small. But if I were to ever debate him again, I want to debate topics that are very different, right? Okay, so one of the things that I never understood is America. So younger creationists in America always talk about the Ten Commandments, but when I read the Bible, there are two Ten Commandments, right? The Ten Commandments that they always refer to is the one that Moses destroyed. So Moses got the Ten Commandments and he destroyed it. Then he went
yeah,
back up and God wrote with his finger, that Ken always says, the new Ten Commandments, which are totally different.
yes,
And that's the one they store in the Ark of the Covenant. So I presume if you're going to talk about the Ten Commandments, you talk about the one that has been preserved, not the one that was destroyed before anyone actually read it, right? So like I always get confused, how do they reconcile that it's the Ten Commandments that was destroyed that no one actually knew about because Moses threw it down and broke it before he actually could speak to the people about it, and not the Ten Commandments that was in the Ark of the Covenant that was then preserved for eternity or whatever. So I don't know. So I'm not really asking you the question, Joe, because I think I don't think about it.
yeah, I know.
It's basically these are the kind of debate topics that I would twist around and kind of confront Kent with and kind of say, Kent, do you know what I mean? These are the kind of little different ways that I feel I can contribute to the discussion, that it's not scientific based, because there are, as I said, there are other people like Mark Reed, Gutsy Given yourself, that can probably do it better than myself. These are the little kind of questions I can maybe ask that hopefully the audience will kind of go, hey, wait a second, that's interesting. Do you get what I mean? So that's what I
Yeah.
try to do in the debates.
Well, and I think that's important because even your biblical literalists aren't really biblical literalists, right? It's still a cherry picking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing with that is, and you're right. The That's what I was earlier when you apply the least little bit of scrutiny to the claims made by the Bible, they fall apart in front of you. They're not supported by anything other than faith. And
Mm-hmm.
the the Ten Commandments, so and all the other laws that are put forth there. You bring that up and the argument switches to, well, that's the Old Testament. We don't follow that. Jesus says to follow it, though. He says to follow it. He does say he's there to fulfill it, but what does that even mean? Like, I'm here to fulfill the law. That doesn't mean anything. It just sounds good. And you have also, though, creationists and theists in general don't like to argue about the Bible because it's indefensible, really. That's why most of the arguments from theists are attacks against atheism or some bastardized philosophy that isn't actually philosophy. It's just nonsense. They've taken philosophy and twisted it into this philosophy position that doesn't really make sense, because then philosophy doesn't prove things that way. So whenever they make their arguments, all you have to do is take out the word God and put in Bigfoot or something else, and it works exactly the same, because that's not how philosophy works. Philosophy will tell you if your ideas are coherent and logical and those things, but it doesn't prove anything on its own. Now, that being said, I'm not anti-philosophy. It's a great tool. Science wouldn't be what it is without it. We wouldn't even be able to have these conversations without philosophy. So it's important, but it's being misused. And theists have really, really focused hard and been pushing to switch that burden of proof, right? They're trying to put the burden on the atheists. That's why now you have people like even Steve McRae, who is out there saying atheism is the positive belief that a God does not exist, right? And it's like, it doesn't matter how you define atheism, really. Yet there is a book. It is the only source for Christianity. it makes all these wild claims and
Yep.
supernatural stories and all that stuff. I'm not convinced that's true. That's it.
Mhm.
Like, convince me that that is true, because I don't
Yep.
believe it is. Now, does that mean that I'm saying God doesn't exist? For the Christian God, yeah, it does, but not any God. Like, I can't prove that. It's not, it's like me saying I can't prove that purple monsters don't exist. Like,
Yep.
it's the same thing. You can just make shit up.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that we should accept it as truth. And unfortunately, with things like religion, that's what's happened. Powerful people who could read when everyone else couldn't said these things were true, and you're going to believe them or you're going to burn for an eternity. And people accepted it as true. And sociology shows us how culture works, and that these things get passed along, and you believe the things that your culture believes. That's why if you're born in Iraq, you're going to be a Muslim, and if you're born in Kentucky, you might be a young Earth creationist, or
Yeah.
at least a
Well,
Southern Baptist.
47% chance of that.
Right. So there's reasons, and really that's my thing, because I don't think we ever even get to the point. Like, I don't care to discuss the claims of the Bible, but I don't think we ever even get there, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason to ever even assert that these things are true. It's just a book written by ancient people that says a thing.
So you're
It's like
right.
any other fictional book. It's not. It doesn't hold water, and those things fall apart so easily that whenever I try to have those conversations, I almost feel like I'm being fake sometimes. Like, I do love a good Bible argument and talking about, like, on I've got a post on Instagram. Go join my Instagram, guys. It's in the chat. But I've got a post on my Instagram that has a couple hundred comments and got like 5,000 views, that talks about your God murdered, children, so don't come and talk to me about my moral standard.
Yeah.
And it stirred up all this controversy, but out of that, we had discussions about what the Bible actually says. Now, the creationists were incredibly dishonest in arguing that, but at the same time, I love talking about those things. But if the argument is what's true, I don't think we ever even get there. I don't think you can give me a reason to even propose that that's true, other than you have a book that says a thing.
You know, you just chatted to you, Joe. Something came to mind that I would love the opportunity, or maybe anyone here that ever wants to debate can maybe have the opportunity to ask him. But like in a face off with Ken, in a live stream, whatever, someone should ask him directly if God, and you are 100% certain it was God. So if God said to you that you should murder your wife, number four, and eat her, would you do it, Ken? Like, just somebody ask him, like, if God said and you were certain it was God, if God told you to kill your wife, number four, and eat her, would you do it? Like,
I, I
someone
think
should put that
I
back
think
onto
they
him.
have to say yes, don't they?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
have to, but it's a loaded question. Once they say yes, it becomes absolutely clear to anybody listening what their moral standards are. That they would think that that would be okay if God said it, even though anyone else with any rationality would think that would be one of the most disgusting and heinous acts that you could do. So you get Kent to say yes, and it becomes transparent to anyone in the audience just how wrong his morality really is.
yeah, no. I think you're right. I think
Thing is, he won't
he
say yes.
Yeah, well, he
Yeah.
won't take that bait, because he'll say
Is
one
Donnie
subject
still
at
on
a
the call?
time.
Donnie, I thought this debate was about evolution. I spent 1 hour. He hasn't brought any evidence about evolution. He'll try to deflect.
Donnie, we agreed to one subject at a time. And, and
Exactly.
and also,
He
I
will
want you to keep an eye
deflect.
on the time. It's supposed to be equal time.
Yes, I've been working hard all day. I don't know. He will definitely
And,
deflect. But
and
if
that's
you can get
exactly
him to
what we
answer the
talked about
question,
earlier. It's
yeah,
Kent's script, right? It's we know what he's going to say.
yeah.
There isn't there.
The fun thing, Joe, that I enjoy is to try and knock him off the script. Because once
Yeah.
you
No,
knock him off the script,
I
that's
respect
the
that.
fun thing. Yeah.
Like I said, I think there's people that do it well. And by the way, I haven't said this, but I'm a fan of yours. I think you do a
Oh,
wonderful
really?
job
Thank you.
with Kent, and I loved watching your debates with Kent. I think that you handle Kent in a unique way that's effective and entertaining at the same time, because you're you're making Kent confront his own ideas first of all, and you're making him do the work. And second, you're just your approach and your attitude towards it is what it needs to be, I think. And
Oh, good. Thank you.
like, you're not taking him overly seriously, right? Like,
Who would
the
though? Who
people
would?
that go and debate Kent and it's like, okay, we're going to have this big debate about strawberries and whales and pine trees, and like they get into all the facts of evolution and stuff. None of that stuff matters. He's not listening, and neither are the people watching the debate. You can point out things or whatever, but the approach with Kent, if you're going to do it successfully, needs to be more of a, I'm going to debate the man, not
Yeah.
not the stupid things he says. I'm going to make Kent confront the things that he said over the years and the claims that he makes, rather than me breaking science down to him, because that's been done by a lot of people who are really good at it, and he doesn't listen and he doesn't gain anything from it.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree. The one thing that clicked for me with debating Kent, and the very first debate I did with him was okay, but the subsequent two was I realized that you've got to break it down to his audience level. So you debate Kent knowing that his audience is a 5-year-old. Like Kent always says, what would a 5-year-old think? That's because his audience intellect are basically 5-year-olds. So if you look at my last debate with Kent, I brought up chromosome fusion as an idea. But you look at what Mark Reed has done, what Grayson, those guys have done. They've tried to explain the science that proves chromosome fusion. So I try to do it a little bit differently. I try to stay away from the science because his audience won't understand it. So I try to stay away from the science. And I got Ken to admit that, well, there are different chromosomes in what he calls the deer kind. So muntjacs have various chromosomes. Even the deer species within them have 68 to 70 chromosomes. So within what he calls the deer kind, there is anything from 7 to 70 different chromosomes. But he accepts that as the same kind. So then my answer was, well, why don't you accept apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, and humans at 46 and 48? Why do you not accept them?
Yeah, it's okay here, but not there.
Yeah. So I wasn't trying to explain what chromosome fusion was, because I know his audience would not understand it. What I was trying to show the audience is you've got different standards. You've applied the science one way, this way, but then you deny it this way. Can you explain, Kent, why that is? And then he basically
because it doesn't work for my narrative, is the answer.
Exactly. But did you know what his response was? His response was, I don't know that a chromosome fusion occurred. So he changed it all back to deny the entire thing actually occurred. So
they've been doing these open mic things with Kent, and it seems like whenever it gets into some question like that really makes him confront the things that Sam runs a lot of interference, and they'll start answering questions for him and change the subject, and that's when he starts to explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Because
you are a 5-year-old, Kent. That's the problem.
Kent knows that he's been told enough that he knows a lot of these subjects are complex. I mean, there's not you're not going to explain it to a 5-year-old. I mean, in any effective way, anyway, that means anything. I mean, you can tell a 5-year-old, but you're not expecting a 5-year-old to understand the particulars of evolution. And Kent knows that. So he says, do it like a 5-year-old, because then it takes away your ability to use the correct terminology and stuff to explain the thing you're talking about. It's a grift. It's a trick. Like one of the things that Kent has is, I think that his personal life has a lot of issues and stuff and whatever. I'm not going to get into it, but Kent does have charisma, and he does have a presence. And if you're not prepared to deal with that, that's how Kent gets on there and makes it seem like he owns the atheists, because he hand waves away anything you say and then makes some charismatic remark that he's used over and over. Imagination, it's those things that Kent does, those little quips. Yeah. That's all part of the act and the show, right? And so I think that sometimes, not always, but I think some people shouldn't go and debate Kent because they haven't got the right approach to it, is the thing. Like, you can debate facts with Kent, but let's not act like Kent is coming from a scientific position and should be taken seriously. Do it in a way that you show the facts, but you also you have to have those questions for Kent that makes him confront the claims that he's making. And when people do that effectively, it's entertaining and it's good and it's educational and all those things. It's very, and it shows the weakness in their arguments, which is a good thing. But
so it sounds like you get it. You should. It sounds like you get it, mate. You should really reconsider maybe the view around not debating Ken, because I reckon you understand how to handle him. You might maybe you feel like you need more practice or something. I don't know. You've got Mark Reed and stuff that he can help you, but
I would rather just make a video responding to Ken's script, honestly.
But it sounds like you get how you should treat him. You know what I mean? And I think
growing up a creationist, I've had people in my area tell me, like, whenever they argue with me, the locals here, they'll say, "You need to go watch Brother Kent Hovind. He gets it." Like, so I'm very familiar with Kent and have seen years of his stuff. And I used to study up because I wanted to debate Kent Hovind. It's just that, I mean, honestly, it's not. Right now, I've got there's a lot of, with the political climate and things, I've been kind of scattered, and I'm upset about a lot of things that are going on there, so I'm not focused. But so it's hard for me to take something like that seriously right now. But it's really, I just don't care. I just don't give a shit. Like,
it's a good attitude, but
you have to be that way to some extent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but look, to be honest, mate, you sound like you get how you can handle him. So it's just, I'm just making a comment that, if you have the attitude that I kind of do. So I personally kind of appreciate more than probably who others would. You get how you should handle him. You kind of saying the things that you know how to trigger him as well. If you ever do want to reconsider doing it, I think it would be entertaining to kind of watch, but you don't have to. It's not like a mandatory that you have to kind of do and stuff. And if you're not in the right space, don't do it. Because the thing about Ken is sometimes those debates go for 2 hours, and I know it seems quick when you debate for 2 hours, but I get like, you look at me, I'll get tired because I'm just sick and tired of hearing his crap for 2 hours. I'll even get tired. I just want it to end, right? So it does take a lot out of you, basically.
No, it does.
Debating stupid for that long just takes a lot out of you.
I had a theist on recently, and it wasn't for a debate. He just wanted to come on and talk to me, and I said, "Okay, come talk." And we talked for a couple hours, and at the end of that show, I was emotionally and physically exhausted. I mean, it does. It takes a lot out of you to even deal with that kind of dissonance, I guess. It does. And I had a good time debating Kyle Adams. I feel like I handled him.
I have to see that. Is that on Mark Reed's channel?
It's on Mark Reed's, and there's a re-upload on my channel too. But
I'll definitely, because I find Kyle, if he's that Mormon guy,
the thing I respect about debate though is the preparation for it, because I think that's really the fun part, and you learn stuff, and you get to put your thoughts together in a coherent way to where you're like, you're going to support this thing you're passionate about. Like, I do like that. And that's one of the reasons that I don't, there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, you shouldn't talk to this person. You shouldn't do this and that." Like, I have those feelings about, I have personal feelings about debating people. And like, I have personal feelings about some of Kent's personal life of why I don't really care for talking to him, But at the same time, I respect that other people go through that preparation, and they're learning and doing something positive to get to it. Even if the debate sucks, like they're still going through those steps. I debated T-Rock. They took it down the next day, but James did it. It was a personal thing. Me and James got into it, but they took it down and put it on the podcast the very next day, like 12 hours later.
So why did they take it down?
Well, I said some not nice things about modern day debates not being professional and
I see.
all this and that, and then they weren't going to do it, but they had scheduled it, so they were like, "Okay, go ahead with it." And then as soon as it was over, they sent it to the podcast and didn't even leave it up. I think it wasn't great. I think I handled him, and I think the facts that I provided, he wasn't able to refute, but it wasn't entertaining. It didn't have that provocativeness and that dumpster fire and that that attitude. I had just started making videos though at that time. I had just hit 500 subscribers, which 300 of those came off the back of one video that got like 20,000 views. So
Nice.
it's, you know, I was just jumping into it, and now I have a bit of a different view and stuff. Views possibly as well. MDD sometimes throws stuff podcasts when it does not get a lot of traffic. Yeah, and it wasn't a great debate. I mean, I admit that it was. I think T-Rock failed to support the claims that he made, but for the people watching, it wasn't that provocative, entertaining thing. You know, I wasn't all into it. I was just pointing out facts and going through the things that I had prepared. And I've had a little experience dealing with theists and stuff now, so I think I could do much better. I think, and if you watch the Kyle Adams debate, I think I did good. I mean,
Okay,
I'm proud of. I'm proud of being prepared for the things that he was going to say, and having sources that I showed and posted and everything for it. I think in those aspects I did good, but I just get I've gotten so wrapped up in being focused on the community itself that I just don't really focus on those things. I don't care to debate. I'll do it. I mean, I you know, if somebody challenges me and wants to have a debate and they can stay on topic and I don't go look at their page and they've got 50 videos being transphobic assholes, like, I'll debate them. You know, I don't care to do that. But like, I've been challenged to debates 5 or 6 times now, and I go look at the person's stuff and they've got all this awful stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'm not really comfortable platforming the stuff that you promote. And that's just me personally. Other people can do that. I'm not telling them they can't. It's fine. But
no, your views are not, you're not alone in your views. So I know Dr. Dan, for example, has been very kind of vocal, and even Eric, etc. There's a reason why none of them are on modern day debate anymore. And that's because I think there was a feeling that they were hosting, you know, white supremacists and nationals, etc. They just didn't want to associate with a debate channel that would host those kind of people, or Nazis, etc. So I think they stopped after that Richard Spencer one. They did a modern day debate hosted Richard Spencer, and you'll see none of those guys are on modern day debate because of that. And I think Dr. Dan's also quite vocal, and he's not so much anymore, but he doesn't want his view is don't give oxygen to Kent Hovind, don't debate him. You're just gonna which is, you know, and I know Dr. Dan quite well. I don't actually agree with him there because I think there are valid reasons to debate Kent. And my view is not on the science. I will not debate Ken on the science because he won't understand it. His audience won't understand it. But if anyone watches him and they find it entertaining if I mock him, that I think is a valid reason. Like, you know, do it for that.
You know, I don't fault anyone else for what they choose to do. This is a social media platform, and you can be yourself and do it however you want to do. Now, I do agree though that sometimes if you go and you're platforming bigots and people who have done awful things, that there may end up in the community that you're in, there may end up being consequences to platforming those things. People may not want to watch that and may be mad at you or whatever. And that's fine. People are allowed to feel however they want. But I also think that each person, you know, you do what you want. I mean, like, I'll tell you, I don't think you should do that or whatever, but at the end of the day, who am I? I'm just some dude from Kentucky. Like, you don't have to agree with me. That's just how I feel about it. And I think that, again, with Kent Hovind, I think there is a benefit in some of the conversations that take place with him. I think Gutsick Gibbon, when she talks to Kent, or Donnie for that matter, I think that everybody should listen, because that's an expert who is giving you free knowledge, right? And she's explaining things in the way that an expert does. And when Kip Davis talks about the Bible, I have a lot of respect for that, because he's an expert on that. He knows what the fuck he's talking about. Like, so there is a way to do these things, or there's the approach, like we said, mock him and have fun with it. That's fun to watch. It's a different thing. It's not explaining evolution to Kent Hovind again, because that's pointless, right? There's just I feel like there's the right attitude depending on what the subject is, first of all, and how you're going to approach it. And I think we talked about Gutsick Gibb and Erica. Not only does she bring those facts and stuff, but she does it in such a sweet, nice way that Kent doesn't know what to do with her.
Yeah.
Like, for real, he doesn't want to push back hard. When Mandisa Thomas went to DAL and debated Kent didn't know what to do with her because he was just overwhelmed by, I think, honestly, that it was a female putting it to him, really.
But a female smarter than him.
Yes.
A female smarter than he is. Not that anyone, I mean, anyone could be smarter than Kent, but a female especially, that must grate on him.
And all of these things, though, like, you can say, okay, well, you're not arguing about the actual topics and the subject, and you're this is ad hominem, and you're deflecting about Kent personally and not the issue. But see, I don't feel like there's an argument there. If you don't have an argument, what are we left with? Like, you want to tell me evolution is a religion and blah blah blah? Define religion. I'll wait. Like, you want to attack atheists and evolution. This is settled science. Like, it is widely understood that evolution is a fact. Wasting your time trying to dispute reality it's just not appealing to me.
Yep.
Kent usually starts the personal attacks and fair. Yeah, you're right, Mark. I agree with you. I was just saying that, like, people would say that I'm not addressing the issues. If you want to hear me talk about evolution, I'll do a stream and I'll explain evolution to the best of my abilities. I'm not an expert. I would say go watch Gutsick Gibb and do that, honestly. Like, go watch Aaron Ross' series of videos about whale evolution and Pakicetus and snake evolution. And go watch those if you want to know about those things. And that's really where the split is, because I know I'm self-aware enough to know that while I can debate those topics, that all I'm doing is a lesser quality of what's already available out there, right? Like, and so it's just not something I focus on. I don't care to do it. And the Kent Hovind thing, Donnie and Sam have approached me a number of times about debating Kent. Now, they've tried to get me to go on the open mic thing. I'm not doing that. But I'm not saying that I wouldn't be open to having some discussion where we set that up in a certain way or whatever. But it's just not something I'm chasing. I'm just not after it. Yep. But again, the debate prep thing, I love it. I love the getting ready for it and the lead up to it, and having that confidence that you feel prepared to have that conversation with that person. I love all that. I think it's great. And it is exhausting too, but it's rewarding at the same time, right? You feel like you came and you defended your position, and the person that is out there spreading harmful ideas. You did a little something to stop that. You did a little something to tell the audience that follows him that they're going to have to lie to say he won that debate, and that's a good feeling. But
what about this as an idea? So Donnie's now got me to do discussions with him, basically. So after the debate with Rock Hard Ken, he set me up, and we've had 3 hours just talking about chromosome fusion 2. We'll probably have a part 3 that he's going to set up in the next few days, finishing off chromosome fusion 2. And that's where I'm taking the opportunity to kind of maybe explain as much of the science as I understand it to his audience. It's very polite discussion, but I'm bringing in papers. I'm taking through, and I figured, look, if I as a layperson that's never understood science can understand this, then anyone can do it, right? So I'm trying to explain to him as best as I can the science. Have you maybe even considered that kind of angle of it, where you are a layperson, you've educated yourself with the science, maybe the fact that you are a layperson understanding science could maybe help you communicate that science better to another layperson? Have you maybe considered, as opposed to a debate, having a conversation with a creationist, could be Donnie, could be anyone else, and use your knowledge to try and influence the audience in that way? Does that kind of make sense?
Well, no, and I think it does, and I think that's a really great idea. That I think the issue comes though is, and I would much rather just have a conversation about those things, but it's really hard when talking to theists to get them to talk about what they believe, and it's hard to get them to talk about why they believe things, why they think the Bible's true, what makes them believe that's true. It's really hard to get them to discuss that. They want to talk about their arguments instead, right? And I think that's a wonderful idea if you can get someone to do it, but it's a difficult thing. That guy, he was in the chat a little bit ago, TJ, who came on. He's a theist and a creationist for that matter. He's not a young earther though, but I think he does deny evolution though. I'm not sure, but when he came on, I wasn't worried about arguing with him. He was actually open about what he believes and stuff. Some of it was batshit crazy, I have to say, but like I would rather have that conversation any day. I'm with you on that. I would like to hear Kent, rather than shift the burden onto someone to explain evolution to him for the 15,000th time. I would rather Kent explain to me why he thinks the claims of the Bible are true and talk about
that will never happen. Have you noticed the way he sets up the debate is the debate he always sets up is you present to me the evidence. He never talk. And then if you try to bring, so when I started talking about the Bible, he started complaining to Donnie about I'm not bringing any evidence, and that's why I'm trying to tell him, well, my evidence is your Bible. I've swapped this around. My evidence is your Bible. So
he deflects anytime you bring up the Bible.
Because as you said earlier, Joe, it's indefensible. You can't argue the Bible. It's a book. It says something. It's wrong. Of course, you can't defend it.
Again, I've put out there that I don't even care if a creationist brings me proof. Just bring me reasons. Just tell me why it is that you think these things are true. You don't have to support it. I'm not going to call you names if you don't. I understand indoctrination is a thing, but I also have many times put forward that I think that not only do they define a God into existence the way that they see it, but I think that every theist believes something different. I think that even within the same denominations, that they hold different beliefs, and the inconsistency, if you just have those conversations, the inconsistency shows itself without ever saying a word. So I'm all for that. It's a hard thing to pull off. Theists don't want to talk about what they believe. They want to talk about their arguments, and their arguments suck. So it's
big time.
But I'm kind of unique because while I will speak out against promoting someone like Jim Bob, who is just a bigot and a homophobe and has a toxic following, I don't think that we should promote him and platform him. But if somebody does it, I'm going to call it out and say that's a shitty thing to do. And I may not watch that channel, but I'm not attacking them personally. It's their choice to do that. But there may be consequences, right? I mean, if you go,
well within your rights, Joe. It's well within your rights.
And I'm really open to having discussions with anyone. I've said many times, anyone who wants to sit down and have an honest discussion with me, and that's the key word, honest. I'm game. Let's talk. But you don't get that much. It's hard. It's like a unicorn. It's hard to find. But it is what it is. It's I still have fun, and I'm sure those things will present themselves. My channel has been steadily growing. I've had great guests on. Matt Dillahunty's been here. Aaron Raw's been here. J.L. Warren's been here multiple times. Mark Reed's been on here multiple times. Ember's been on here.
How did you get Mark Reed? I mean, Mark Reed is he's right up there. How'd you get him?
I just asked.
I want Raw stuff. I mean, you're okay. You're talking about
everybody's like, how did you get Aaron Raw to come on your channel? And I'm like, I emailed him and asked, and he said yes. I always lay it out with if it's somebody I don't know, I say, hey, look, I was raised a creationist, and so I have a connection with the things that you're talking about because of this, but I've decided to use my voice to do this thing. Would you be interested in coming and talking to me? And Aaron Raw is the guy you want to go drink a beer with. He is such a genuine, nice
and he loves
person.
his beer. He loves his
Yeah,
beer.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it could be educational as well. You could
Yeah,
drink and be educated.
yeah. His experience and knowledge by itself is enough to
Mm.
want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But he also is just a wonderful, great guy.
Yeah.
And
He sounds
like I
like
said
it.
about Mark Reed, there's these people in our community that are not only great at what they do, but they have the rest of the package too. They're demonstrating that atheists are caring people who want to expose harm, and they take care of their friends, and they're nice, and all those things. And I
Yeah.
think in normalizing the atheist community, that's a really important uh, thing for us to show the world
Mm.
at large.
Mm.
If Because it's this taboo subject to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
The atheist community, you don't have channels with millions and millions of subs, because it's this niche area. We have to normalize that so that people are more comfortable coming and having those
Yeah.
conversations.
No,
Um,
that's a great
I'm
word.
not telling you what to believe, or that you're stupid, or I'm not saying you're irrational, because I think indoctrination is a thing again. But you have to be willing to engage in that conversation. And for the theists out there who aren't willing to engage in that conversation, you should
Mm.
think about the implications of that, like why you're not willing to do that. Because I think that deep down that there's a lot of problems with that position, and you don't
Mhm.
want to be confronted with them. And that's okay. We're here to I'll be gentle.
Yeah, no, you're doing the right thing, and we really need more channels like what you're kind of doing, Joe. Like I think we build that community. It's definitely going to help improve the scientific knowledge within the United States. And as I kind of said earlier, it's trending the right way. I think it's going a bit too slow, personally, to my liking. But creationism is declining in America. I just wish it'd be doing it faster. And
I
channels
agree.
like yourself, Aaron Ra, and
Yeah.
Mark Reed for Australian Prime Minister for sure. I reckon that those are the channels that are going to help that, will help
Yeah.
accelerate that.
Yeah, no, I think that. So I remember back whenever I first started getting into like the atheist activism movement, was
Yeah,
watching Hitchens
yeah,
and Lawrence Krauss and Dawkins go around and debate Dinesh D'Souza and the Catholic Church, Stephen
yeah,
Fry, and all that stuff, right? All those major iconic debates that took place.
yeah.
I think about that stuff, and I realize that there are, for people coming into the community or asking those questions, that want to see people address those important questions. I think that there are these huge channels, charismatic people that are there. But I think eventually, I mean, the line has became, and not to shit on the line, because I love what they do, for real, I do. But it's became really they're trying to make it like the only source to go. And I don't want to say it that way, because I don't think there's anything devious or conspiratorial about it. The line has just became this huge thing. And once you've like, it's valuable what they're putting out there to the people that go watch it. And obviously they have a huge audience and they're doing really good. But there's also these other things that the atheist community needs to be, that they're not getting from that. That you can watch Matt Dillahunty yell at people and hang up, and watch Aaron Raw laugh at people and make them look silly. Like, you can watch that so many times, but eventually, like, you want to embrace that community and have that safe space with like-minded people, where you can grow those ideas and have one-on-one conversations, not just watching someone own the Christians.
Mm.
And so I think those channels will always be bigger, but I think that there's also a lot of value in the other thing too, right? Like, I think that it's really important that we have this, and that we have community, and that we work on that too, because my experience is being isolated in Eastern Kentucky. There aren't other atheists here. My girlfriend is an atheist. I've been with her for 11 years, because she's the only other one. Like, we like
There's
there
only
aren't
two of you in
many.
Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, yeah. It's just not a thing here. So having the
Hey,
atheist
can I ask
community.
you? Sorry, Joe. something just came to my mind. Do you guys are you prejudiced because you're an atheist? Like, would you be scared to go out if people know that you're an atheist? Is there like reverse prejudice back to the fact that you're not a creationist?
So one of the things that I try to keep in check, because I am the one with the prejudice towards a lot of the creationists around here. I
Mhm.
don't trust the things they say, and
Yeah,
I feel like you have people that embrace magical thinking, and they're mostly Trump supporters too. And I feel like they're just not, even if it's not their fault, if they're just indoctrinated, their beliefs are so harmful and irrational that I don't trust their judgment. So it's hard for me to
do they
interact
treat
with
you
people
differently
around
if
here.
they know that you're an atheist in East Kentucky?
Some people do.
Yeah.
I've spoke at a church. I've done in person debates here with apologists from William Lane Craig's camp and other people that wasn't on video or anything. Just stuff that whenever I first started getting into having these conversations,
Mm.
and uh, the so there are a number of people that know, and they don't. It either goes one of two ways. Either they don't want to bring religion up with me at all and talk about it because they know that like I'm prepared for that conversation,
Yeah.
or that's all they ever want to talk about, and it's like they want to have a screaming match with me. And
Yeah.
so it and I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it always seems to be that it's one of those two ways. Or there's the like I, I'm 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 impoverished. I'm a poor person, right? And I'm fine with that. You know, like my kids are taken care of, and I'm able to take care of my family, and we make it. Even if it's a day at a time, we make it. But I live in a very poor area in our country and a very poor area in Kentucky itself, and so there's this. I'm always looked down upon by the religious people anyway, because it's mostly the rich people and stuff that are big in the Christian community here. So I kind of am numb to a lot of that. I'm used to being looked at for the clothes that I wore to church, and for not having things that other people have. Like it's I'm used to that. And I'm not like I'm not trying to ask for pity for those things or anything. I don't like I accept. Again, I was a drug addict and been to prison and jail and stuff. That kind of follows that's the statistic, right? You end up that way. But I also though think that uh, those things make me stronger in being able to talk about certain things. And as far as the drug thing is, I had open heart surgery. My heart ticks now. I have an artificial valve in my heart. Um, so I've been through these things to where it's like I don't. I'm lucky to have escaped with my life
Yeah. Look,
from getting
I don't want to say I'm sorry to hear about all of this because I really believe anyone's histories lead them to the person that they are today.
sure.
I've only just met you. This is the first time we've talked face to face. You're a decent
Yeah,
guy. You've got your head screwed on kind of tightly. Like you know what you're on about. You understand the science. You have this desire that I can see of you wanting to learn about the natural world. All the stuff that you've done, good or bad, brings you to where you are today. I really do believe that, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to say I'm sorry about your situation stuff because where you are today seems to be a good place. It's where I
It's
wish a lot of creationists were, right? And you got there through all the hardships, and that's probably a good thing.
I don't have because of the life I've lived and stuff. I don't, and again, I do have those health problems. I don't want the legacy I leave behind to just be. I don't want to be who my history is, the drug
Yeah.
addict and the felon and those things. So, part of the stuff that drives me to be passionate about the atheist community is that I would rather be remembered and seen for a person who tried to build community and help people and
Yeah.
expose harm
Yeah.
and those sort of
Okay,
things.
that's great. That's
So
perfect. That's good.
so that kind of there's a lot of I come with a lot of baggage.
I don't know, mate. If I was in Kentucky, we would go out and have a beer. And you can tell me a life story. I mean, it sounds interesting. I don't know if
I'm
it's better.
putting it in a book, actually.
Oh, really? Have you done
Right
anything?
now, what I'm doing is I'm telling the story on just audio only recordings, and I'll post that on my Patreon, and then all that's going to be assembled together into a book
The
eventually.
real story behind the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's always like, it's got to be the Kentucky Fried Atheist or the Kentucky Fried something, like, yeah. But
well, everywhere else besides Kentucky, that's I think what people normally think of. Like in Australia, when you say Kentucky, the first thing that comes to my mind is KFC.
yeah, well, it's like,
literally,
especially outside of the United States, that's what everybody always says.
Yeah.
That it's always, you go eat KFC, because that's the only time you hear Kentucky outside of the United States. I get that.
Possibly that could be right.
But see, I feel like that being from Kentucky, having this accent that is usually associated with bigots and racism and all that stuff, and being able to talk about these other topics and do the things that I do, I think that some people find value in that from my perspective. And I called myself the Kentucky Atheist because it was kind of a joke, like I'm the only one here. But
yeah,
the truth of it is that it's bourbon in Kentucky, Mark, by the way. But
Kentucky bourbon, yes.
It's not whiskey, it's bourbon, and we have more barrels of bourbon.
It's bourbon. Even I know that.
It's a fact that in Kentucky there's more barrels of bourbon than there are people.
I may actually have bourbon.
But
no, sorry, mate.
I think that I
must have drank it.
I met so many other atheists from Kentucky doing this, though. Like me and Robin do a show, and I don't want to name names because there's a bunch of them, and I'll leave people out. But me and Robin started doing the political show together. She's from Kentucky, and I've met several atheists from Kentucky through this channel, and I think that that's amazing. And it's that's why I try to focus on the community aspect of it, because I think that from my perspective, that's really the direction that is most valuable to the people that have experienced the things I have. And so that's how I do it. But yeah,
I must say I didn't automatically click that your accent would be kind of, I did not associate that accent with what did you say,
racism and bigotry.
Yeah, no, I didn't think it's possible because I've been recently watching Yellowstone. Is your accent similar to Yellowstone? It sounds a bit similar to when, like, I recently got into it, so I haven't not watched it before. I started watching because my wife loved it, so I'm on like season 2 at the moment. But your accent sounds a little bit like so I would have thought maybe cowboys, but I would never have associated with.
We have in the United States, you have your northeastern people from Boston. You've got that, right? And then you've got the southern accent, which mine isn't as bad as some, but you get that real deep southern accent. You get that going on.
Sweet home Alabama.
And then out west, you've got the I don't even know how to do a Texas accent really. It's because it's not. It's more out west. I feel like they. And I know it's weird to say that they don't have much of an accent, but I don't hear it. So maybe it is close to mine. But yeah, there's a lot of even though the United States, the majority speaks English. It seems like kind of like Spanish or something. There's dialects of that, because I can have a conversation with somebody from Kentucky and talk about things people wouldn't even understand what I'm talking about. You go down. You need to go lie down by the creek. Things like that. But
I just did not associate your accent with being racist. Like I said, because I've been watching Yellowstone, I just thought you sounded more like the cowboys I hear in Yellowstone. So you're a cowboy.
I don't think everybody associates it with that, but I think like there's this redneck connotation, right? Like there's this goes with it. That's Joe's porn name, Andrew Christopherson. I love it. There's this there's a negative connotation that goes with it. So I am kind of proud to be showing that that's not how everybody with this accent behaves.
No, if I were to think about rednecks, I suppose the only thing that comes to mind is there's this episode of The Simpsons where they have this guy called Cletus, and he's making out with a girl in the back of his pickup, and he goes, and the girl goes, we shouldn't be doing this, Cletus. You know, that's mom and pa looking at us, and he goes, that's my mom and pa too. So it's like, but he does it in this really strong hilly-billy kind of accent. And that's the one I associate with rednecks, I suppose. But it's much stronger than what you've got, like tons much stronger.
My accent isn't as bad as, or it's not as thick as a lot of people.
Let's just go with cowboy, mate. You're a cowboy. You sound like a cowboy. We're just going to go with cowboy. Yeah.
There's definitely a southern drawl thing. But whatever. It works for me, I guess. I have people that just like to listen to me talk sometimes. So
it is interesting. It is interesting. Though I think I've got a bit of a unique Australian accent. It's not exactly the same. Mark Reed has a much stronger typical Australian accent, and it's probably because when I grew up, my parents spoke Chinese to me, so I've got a bit of Chinese twang to what I say. Plus, I was actually born in Canada, so I've got Canadian Australian citizenship. I came here when I was 4, so I grew, most of my life I spent here. So I've got a bit of a mixture of accents. It's not 100% Aussie.
Yeah,
but
your
Mark
Australian accent isn't as pronounced, and it's more subtle,
and it's probably
like,
mixed. Like I speak to my parents in Chinese, so it's kind of like it's mixed.
Yeah, see here in America, anyone with an Australian or English accent, we're all ears for. I don't know what it is that Americans love the sound.
Too bad I'm married. I'll have to go and check out all the what is it, those cowboy bars or whatever that everyone does little dance and whatever. So I have to go check that out. I've never been to Kentucky.
Mark Reed, I would say you can hear some of the British roots in your accent. Sorry, excuse me, guys. You can hear some of the British roots in your accent sometimes. I think, Mark. But your accent.
Sometimes, Mark, you act like a bloody British tall poppy, right? We're gonna cut that one down.
Right. It's that Australian accent isn't far off from it, really. I mean, it's quite different, but it's not hard to shift into it, right? It's
it depends, Joe. You've got, and Mark can maybe back me up here, but you've got I think 3 types of Australian accent. So you've got, I think the one you're talking about, like the Mark, is the middle type, where you've got it's like you can tell it's Australian, but you can understand it, right? Then you've got the more lower one, which I guess you might call the hilly-billy, the redneck versions. You've got like the bogan Australian accent that's so thick, even I can't understand what they're saying. If I meet a bogan Australian with that really strong drawl, I don't even know what they're saying. And then you've got the more upper class one, which, Mark, you're probably tending towards, where they sound almost like a posh British, but with an Australian twang to it. So I see 3 accents. When you hear Hugh Jackman and those guys, you get in the middle one, like Nicole Kidman, get in the middle one. Then you get the really, like, some of our sporting guys. I can't even understand them.
Yeah. I hear the difference in those. I understand you. Yeah, that makes sense. And to be fair, I mean, I think probably all languages have their variation like that.
Possibly. Yeah, you're right.
But all right, so I've had you here for almost 2 hours. Let's.
Oh, really? Got it. I must say, it's kind of it's definitely flown. I've enjoyed myself.
You're welcome. You're welcome to come back.
I'd love to.
I had a great conversation with you.
I enjoyed it. 11:50. Well, it's 11:50 a.m. for me. We started at 10. Yeah, it's an hour 50 minutes. I gotta say, man, it just flew by.
Yeah. I think that I loved our talk, and I think that I'm actually we've been discussing doing a panel talking about kind of the status of some of these debates with Kent Hovind and stuff. And again, I haven't really this isn't solid yet, so the idea is still kind of forming.
When you get solid, happy to be part of it and give my views and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna
take your time.
Me and Jess talked about having you and maybe Mark Reed and some people that have debated Kent come on and talk, maybe AJ if he wants to. But get some people together and have a little conversation about it. But Ian
Just
Chen,
before,
everybody. Yeah, there's a link to Ian. It's pinned in the chat there too. And
yeah,
Casey has been.
I don't really have a channel. It's where I do like debates or discussions. It's just a place where I just store it. So if you want to kind of find an easy place and stuff I've done.
Yeah.
I did my very first debate was against Nephilim Free, and that was on Modern Day Debate. But he rage quit and they didn't put it up. So, but I managed to get a copy of the debates.
No.
If you want to see that one, just have a look at that one. He rage quit in record time.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, come back and hang out again. And
yeah, send me an invite. I'll be there.
You got anything coming up you want to plug before we get off here?
Not really. I'm trying to. The only thing is, too bad Donnie's not in the chat. Is he? Maybe not. So I've asked Donnie to set up a debate between me and Sam. That's from Redefined Living, I think he's called. Only because I've got an argument that I want to use, but it's quite a rude one, and I want to save it. I want to save it for a particularly obnoxious creationist, and I think Sam would be a good one. So Donnie said he would want to do it. He just have to try and convince Sam. So cross fingers that happens. Just guys, it's rude. It's hopefully that means it's going to be fun, and because it's rude, I need to target at someone I don't like, and I don't like Sam. So hopefully that happens.
Deviant Outcast giving me all of her sex.
Lots of sex from Deviant Outcast. He's a
this
sex
is how
man.
it is with Joe. You can talk for hours and still have more to talk about.
Yeah, that's 100% true. 100% true.
So much. But yeah, no, and that's true. I can go on for 4 or 5 hours sometimes, especially I get into somebody I'm having a good conversation with, which I think we did here. Everybody else, I have dropped my Twitter account and I'm over on Blue Sky. It's posted in the description of this video and stuff. Go over there and follow me. I post a lot of memes and stuff over there. Jess makes most of them, so definitely say thanks to her for them. But and Jess was actually instrumental in connecting me and Ian so that we could have this conversation. So you rock, Jess. Thank you so much for everything. I'll be back Sunday with Secular Rarity, and I'll be posting an audio thing to Patreon this week, and we'll have a members only stream tomorrow evening, probably about 6 o'clock. So plenty of stuff going on. I'll be I've got lots of things coming up and stuff. A lot of big surprise. Apostate Sisters come on next week. That's going to be fun. So stay tuned for all that, guys. And thank you to my channel members and Patreon supporters. I really appreciate the support you guys give this channel. It's one of those things that I know people support what I'm doing, and it drives me to do better and do more. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I appreciate everyone, and I appreciate Ian for taking the time to come sit down with us and come back and visit sometime, man. But
yeah, thank you for the invite, Joe.
Yeah, and everybody have a great one. See you later. Bye.